ask we move one of those items before we approve the agenda from board officer position, nomination of board member, to the top of that section.
Second. If you're making that form.
There wasn't a motion yet.
Yeah, I'm motion.
Any other changes? I have a motion to approve the agenda with the revision of the board officers item. Somebody will make the motion?
I'll make the motion.
Good.
Who was the second?
Me?
Tony, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Want to read the mission statement?
Want me to? Okay, sure. Cornerstone Charter Academy, a tuition-free public charter school, will give every student the opportunity to reach his or her potential by providing a rigorous academic program, character education, and meaningful parental participation.
Thank you very much. Item 4, approval of minutes. Minutes of November 16th were submitted for the record. Are there any revisions or changes in those minutes? If not, we need a motion to approve.
Motion to approve the November minutes.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We also have the minutes from the December 4th special meeting. There are some things in there that I did note, but I'll let anybody, if there's anything else in there that needs to be changed before I note some things. Okay, under item 2, there was a question asked about why Greg Cinders was there. That was not included. Under item 4, we did ask the question about Robert's rules, but I think that came under when Tony was introducing board procedures under item 6. It's not a big deal, but that was where it took place. The old business was taken off, so in the future you don't have to keep the old business on the agenda. If something's taken off, you don't have to. And then when we call, and if we do have to put in that there was a motion for the executive session, and we have to note the time that we went into executive session and when we came back. Right. So that's missing, so we'll need to revise those minutes. So we can either revise them and resubmit them, or just revise them, make a motion to with revisions.
Let's move that we delay the passing of the minutes until they're revised.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So those are gonna be postponed till next month. Also, there was a strategic planning meeting on 12/7. I think those minutes need to be put in the record next month as well. They were not included in the packet.
I'll make the same motion for your suggestion.
Oh, okay, fine. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, so go ahead, Paul. The nomination of new board member under board positions.
I move that we accept Paul Stanfield onto the board of Cornerstone Charter Academy.
Is there a second?
I second.
Question.
Is there discussion?
Yeah, just one question.
Yes.
Did Mr. Stanfield serve the entire 3 years of his first term?
I believe he came on in the month of July, and in that meeting was actually his first meeting, but I think he was approved in June, but I would have to go back and check the minutes.
So this should be if this is approved, then it should be for 3 years, is that correct?
Our terms are 3 years.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments? I do have a couple of questions. We're compliant with 5 members right now. I'm not quite sure why we are in a rush when we have 7 applications that we've received and we haven't had a chance to review together these applications. Mr. Stanfield only, resigned 6 months ago, or didn't resign, chose to not renew 6 months ago. I don't know why we would want to go backwards and put him on the board when we've just removed another board member who did want to renew. I think it would be better if we sat down and talked about all the applications first, before we moved forward. And I have to say that based on the information that I provided last month, I can't with a clear conscience vote yes to appoint Mr. Stanfield back on the board tonight. Those details were released in the emails last month. Any other discussion?
Yeah, may I comment since I made
Sure.
the motion? Mr. Stanfield, has served 1 term. The other board member applications, we have suggested that, they serve on a committee first. Mr. Stanfield wouldn't apply to that. But the reason I'm very anxious to get him back on this board, has anybody on this board ever seen a resume like he has? An 18-page resume that was incredible. And so I'm of the opinion that we approve Mr. Stanfield back onto the board of directors tonight.
Is there any other discussion?
May I make a comment?
Yes, you may.
Mr. Stanfield has great experience in the leadership. As we were listening to the parent comments at our December 4th meeting, there was a great eagerness to know about the strategic direction of the school. And Mr. Stanfield is a person of great experience and vision in that area, and we are hoping and have confidence that I have confidence that he will be able to help us to put together a strategic plan and help us to fully realize the leadership program in our high school. I know he was instrumental in that, as was Jay. I believe you worked on that too, is that right? And I support him. I think he's a person of great integrity.
Any other comments? Has each member of this board, as we have done in the past, spoken with Mr. Stanfield about his return to the board?
I have.
I have.
Okay, so the motion was to place Mr. Stanfield back on this board, by Tony, second by Cindy. All in favor?
Aye.
I am a nay. Any abstentions? Obviously not. The vote will pass 4-1 to 0. Resignation of the current board president. After 5 years of serving as the president of the board and 1 year as the secretary of the board and one of the founders of this school, I have decided with reservation and regret that I am going to step down as the president of the board of directors at the close of this meeting tonight. I will finish my term on the board as a standing member, which will expire in June of 2019. I am resigning because without discussion with me personally of my role as board president, authority was taken from me, but leaves the role with the fiduciary responsibility to the state, and I do not want to carry that burden of responsibility without being included in decisions of the board and the governance and oversight of this school. Cornerstone was built on 3 pillars: rigorous academics, character development, and meaningful parental involvement. It has been an honor to support our academic curriculum of core knowledge, Shirley English, Singapore math, and our K-8, and a high school with a theme of leadership and community involvement. It has also been an honor to serve the students of Cornerstone, watching them grow and develop over the past 6 years. It has been an honor to serve and represent the parents of Cornerstone, helping them to understand the uniqueness of our charter school and the concept of school choice. I have learned so much from serving as president of this board. I have worked with the Office of Charter Schools, trained under their leadership, worked with our North Carolina State Representative and our North Carolina Congressman for the school choice movement. I have attended training by the state, the Charter School Leadership Institute, and Team CFA, where I have learned about the roles and responsibilities of the Board of Directors of a public charter school. And I have learned from several more experienced charter school board members and charter school leaders, including and especially those from Team CFA. As I step away from my role as president, I want to thank those of you who have supported this school and as support of me as president these past 6 years. The parents who have developed this school, I trust you will continue to do the work with the board, the PTO, and the staff to continue to make Cornerstone grow and become an A school. I want to thank all of the teachers who support staff that this school was built upon. You truly are the foundation upon which our students will develop and grow. There is nothing I am prouder to be a part of than hiring teachers and staff of such high quality. Every teacher, TA, and administrative assistant is top-notch in my book, and I applaud all of you. Thirdly, Team CFA and their support of our school in so many ways. The board members you have assigned, the vision of Mr. John Bryan for charter schools, and the conference is for development and training of board and staff. Being a Team CFA and core knowledge school is what makes us a standout as a school of choice for parents and students. Our Carruthers and Roth, our legal counsel, there are just too many ways they have advised me as president and ensured our school was doing things legally and ethically during my tenure as president. Mr. Scott Conklin for his dedication and service to this school, along with the entire facility committee for their vision and work in securing this incredible campus and financing for this campus. What many of you do not know is that Mr. Conklin has served on the facility committee with Mitch Croat, Andy Cochran, and Chris Lewis for not just the 2 years leading up to us moving into this incredible building, but for 6 years. Since we opened our doors, these 4 men, under Mr. Conklin's direction, worked with several others to bring us to this campus, and none of us would be here if it were not for their work. I have no greater appreciation for my husband and family who have allowed me to serve this school for almost 8 years now, and I'm looking forward to more time with my husband, children, and the expectant grandchild. Finally, I want to thank the board members I have served with that have behaved with integrity for the betterment of this school, even when we didn't always agree. So tonight, our board will install new officers to fill the empty officer's position for the remainder of the 2017-18 school year. And in that, I will recommend Jay Hawkins to fill the position as president and Arena Byers to fill the vacated vice president seat. I submit my resignation as president of the board, effective at the close of business tonight, with reservation and regret. Approval of new officers.
Mr. Hawkins, as the only officer left on this board at this time, I ask your permission to appoint, make a motion to appoint a new president to the board. I move Jay Hawkins to be president and/or chairman of the board of directors of Cornerstone Charter.
Do I have a second?
I second.
Marina? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Jay?
Aye.
No, I didn't mean that. I figured you said that. Yeah, you can say aye.
Aye.
Yep, say aye.
Do you have anything to say? Is what I was
I do
gonna
have
say.
something to say. Is it my time?
You
Is
may
it my
say what
turn?
you may say.
So, you know, I'm not used to speaking. I kind of do my work one-on-one typically in my real life. So, first of all, I do want to let Carla how much know that we appreciate everything that she has done for this school. It's meaningful for me, and I do think that and I'll say this in my statement too, I'm super grateful because I have 3 kids here for everything that's been done. So this is the rest.
That's for the new baby.
Thank you.
I chose things that I wouldn't mind reading 10,000 times to a baby, so.
Well, thank you. I will enjoy looking at that on the plane for hours.
All right. So I'm going to read a statement. I will try to read it as quickly as I can. So I'm speaking obviously today as both a new board president and a parent. As some of you may or may not know, the last several weeks have brought about change on the board at Cornerstone. As the result of change, the element of the unknown can make us feel uneasy about the future. It can make us especially uneasy if the change causes us to personally reflect on different behaviors and general ways of doing things. Before we know it, if we aren't careful, we begin to operating from the assumption that all change is bad. However, if you get right down to it, this school that all of us are part of was started because people were looking for change. And while I certainly understand the uncomfortableness of change, nothing stays the same. In life, in any undertaking, you either get better or you get worse. You simply can't stay the same. The changes made in the last weeks were changes made with the best intentions for our school in mind. These changes will empower us to grow as a school, to grow in leadership principle, and to grow in greatness as a school community. Now, that's not to say that Cornerstone has not already achieved great things. All you have to do is look at our facility, look at the number of students that we educate. The original founding board members had a mission to create a school that would get at every student the education and meaningful parental involvement. They, at that time, wanted change, and the reality of their hard work, countless hours of planning, execution of a plan, and to change public education is a school that now has over 1,000 students in grades K through 11 and one of the largest charter school waiting lists in North Carolina. A school that was named this summer as the Team CFA Network School of the Year. As a parent of 3 of those students, I am forever grateful to every one of the people involved in that process to provide my children and all children with an opportunity for a great education. To every board member, administrator, teacher, volunteer, parent, coach, and friend, thank you. Thank you for working to change the educational conversation and giving families in the Piedmont Triad area a chance for something different and something better. So in recent weeks, I've sat with some of you in this room who disagree with the positions I've taken as a member of this board. I've read each email and each letter written about my positions and listened intently as people spoke openly to the board in other venues. Each one of you asked me to explain my position. At first, my reaction was simply this: I'm not sure what answer I could give that would ever be good enough. The task of trying to answer a broad array of opinions and concerns in a way that pleases everyone is virtually impossible. Do I rehash every meeting, every interaction, every reason? But later, as I reflected, there's only one answer I found that needs to be given, because this is the truth. If I were to recount every detail that we would all lead to this answer. I made the decision to make the school better, to put the school on a path towards being the best. In my time on the board, our board at times has struggled to provide positive culture. In fact, at times bullying, getting your own way, doing harm. Our behavior, this board's behavior, and I'm saying our behavior, has not always been what I would want for our children in the classroom. If I were using those same words to describe the classrooms where our children, our future work and play and learn each day, you would want change too. And in a school where this board has adopted and agreed to abide by a set of core beliefs and cardinal principles to value relationship over personal position, engage in healthy dialogue, and exhibit character and integrity, shouldn't that board serve as a model for our children? So my answer again is that I voted for change, a change from being a board whose behaviors stand in the way of positive work to a board whose behaviors serve as a model of what we want for our future to be. I voted for change that, in my personal opinion, must happen to achieve truly great things and lasting things at this school. At this starting point, in my time as the president of this board, I want to ask you, our parents, in doing two things. Continue to engage in dialogue that uplifts the great things at our school and looks for the opportunity to exist in positive change. Secondly, join me in working to build a culture in our school around the principles of leadership that our board adopted a year ago. Principles adopted to set a standard for how we work together and provide guidance on how we deal with the inevitable challenges that present themselves in an organization of this size. As our core belief states, each of us has the capacity to lead in our own way. Throughout our lives, we are presented with circumstances where we function as a leader. For my remaining time on this board, I'm committed to looking at myself and holding myself and all others accountable for providing an encouraging and productive change in culture, particularly as it relates to this board. As a leader, I pledge to serve in such a way that our three pillars of rigorous academics, character education, and parental involvement are strengthened. In closing, many of you have mentioned that you would like to know what our plan is moving forward. And what I can share with you about the plan is positive, in line with our adopted cardinal principle to clarify direction, align to it, and commit to success. On December 7th, I, along with other board members and our administration, began to work on that plan. We are in the early stages of creating a vision statement that will serve to drive a school-wide strategic plan, a plan that will ultimately begin to provide outcomes for your children and hold all of us accountable for our school's mission. This plan will provide a framework that allows all of our children to achieve truly great things. We are in a good place. These are exciting times. These are times when all of us can work together to accomplish more than any one of us can achieve on our own. I do want to end with a quote from Sophocles. All good men make mistakes, but a good man yields when he knows a course is wrong and works to repair the course. The only crime is pride.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. We have a motion to approve a new vice president of the board.
I move that Tony Wilkins be our vice president.
A second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm a nay. Is there a motion to, do you have anything to say, Mr. Wilkins?
No, ma'am.
Do we have a motion to approve a new secretary of the board?
Move that Cindy Swindlehurst be appointed secretary to the board.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We have a motion to approve a new treasurer to the board.
I move Paul Stanfield serve as treasurer to the board.
Do we have a second?
I second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm a nay. Moving forward. Well, obviously Phil's not here. If he does arrive, I would certainly grant him. And Cindy, I apologize, I did not ask if you would like to make a statement.
I'm happy to be the secretary.
Okay. And if Paul comes, we can certainly do that. Okay, we now have a, Ms. Joe, are you here? Hello? I don't think so. You wanna text him?
Jackson?
He's riding a roller coaster, maybe?
My question would be, I think the presentation was essentially that mission statement.
The slides are pretty self-explanatory from what I saw.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, can you put it up?
Yeah.
And if our heads are in the way, we can slide. Tom.
Slowly.
That is so lucky.
Try.
Have you already texted?
Because I wasn't setting it up. I mean, the slides are very self-explanatory. I mean, formally, that's the way it would. I don't have a problem if we
Do y'all wanna
wanted to
move
just,
it down?
to wanna
Down?
wait and give
If we
them
can
some
get
time.
it
I don't have a
on.
problem with that.
Do you want a motion to do that, or do you want to just?
Let me see
think
if
you
I
can
can
do that, Jay, on your own, I don't think.
Yes.
You can't vote now.
Hello? Hey, you can't get on the main line, or can you dial into the intercom or to the school line, or no?
Yeah, its reception down there is not always great. Why don't, we go to the updates on open items,
Okay,
and then we can come back to it. I don't think
Yeah.
anybody objects to that, do they?
no. So my question would be, do we need to move the committees, can we do that as a slate, or do we need to do that by individual
I
committee?
think that could be a slate.
You want a motion?
Yeah, do you
Yeah, I
have?
think it'd
you have
probably be a good
them?
I
idea.
didn't bring it with me.
I've got it.
You mean the
Yeah.
motion for the committees or to move the items?
Do we need to move the item probably first?
So,
Right.
somebody wanna
So
make that
let's-
motion?
I'll make the motion to move it down, I don't know how far,
Until Joe's on the phone.
until Joe's on the phone.
I'll second that if you want a motion, but
Yeah.
you have the authority to move it without a motion, but I'll second if you want to make a motion.
Yeah, I wanna move it down to when,
Yeah.
till he can get on the phone, so,
All fine with that.
all in favor, do I need to vote?
Anybody all in favor? Nobody's objecting? Okay,
No.
we're good.
Okay.
All right, go ahead, Jim. Committee members, committees.
I move that we accept the, committee, membership as a slate, as, approved.
Jay, can you read those out?
I can, give me just 1 second. Working off of like
Do we have a second on that? Somebody said, I mean, I.
Well, first of all, I think that from the initial, that we do need to make a change on one of those committees from the slate.
Okay.
So, I just wanna make sure we're good on that, so.
Let me remove the motion until he does that.
That's fine.
So, trying to find the,
Do you remember which one it was?
yeah, I just got, I got 2,000 emails.
There's 5,000 in mine.
Thought I had it too, Jay.
I got it. Alright. So I make I would make a motion to, according to that slate, add Carla to the academic committee as well, on that slate. And so what we would essentially have is on the academic committee, Cindy is chair, we would have Carla and Arena. Then on the governance committee, we would have Cindy, Tony, and Arena. On the finance committee, we would have Paul as chair with myself on the committee. Facilities would be myself as chair with Tony. High school would be Carla as chair with Paul. And then we would have a full board personnel committee that rotates the interview portion of hiring.
The ad hoc, we're waiting until after the.
I mean, that really needs to come from the floor.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay, then I'll move the slate with the changes you just mentioned. The only change then is adding Carla to the
Correct,
academic
correct.
committee.
Yeah.
I'll move it with that
Was the chair on governance Cindy?
Cindy,
Was the chair
Chair.
on facilities
me,
Jay? Paul's the chair of finance,
you're the high school.
and I'm the high school. Okay, I just wanna make sure I had that accurate. Okay, so Tony, you made that motion, is there a second? Second.
All in favor?
Well, discussion.
Is there discussion?
No, were you on the high school committee?
Yeah, I rotated off that one.
You want to come on?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
Okay, all right. That's all I had.
Did we
Any other discussion?
You're running the meeting.
Yeah, that's it, you didn't tell everybody that you were gonna
Yeah,
let me run the
I'm gonna let
mess.
Carla run the meeting.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next item, Jay, is the, information on the land purchase. You want me to
Yeah,
do
go
that?
ahead, do it.
Okay, so, what's that? Joe, are you on the phone?
I'm here now.
Okay.
Gosh,
Let-
they've been wearing me out down here.
How many roller coaster rides have you ridden?
It's not so much that, I've just been walking. I sat down for 1 second and I drifted off. I am so sorry.
Oh, okay, do you, Allison's got the slides ready, so do you wanna just start?
Yeah, I can do that if it's the right time, unless you guys want to keep going with whatever you were doing.
The motion was to wait till you could get on the phone, so we're good to go whenever you're ready.
Okay. Okay.
So, Allison?
So, Allison, I'm on slide 2. As the board knows that we met on December 7th in a working session, and that working session was intended to help begin the process of developing a vision statement for the board and for the school. And so we met, and there was a meeting of 5 board members, 3 administrators, and Tony Best, who's here to help facilitate the meeting. The meeting, I felt like, was a very positive meeting for everybody involved. And what Tony did was spend time having us discussing where opportunities for growth in the school, which means where are those opportunities that we have to continue this, the path forward, a positive path forward for the school. What we wanted that to look like down the road. So if we maximize all those opportunities for growth and we achieve what we wanted to in the school, what would our school look like? And so he did that both individually, meaning each of us had an opportunity to try to put our own picture of that forward, and he did it collaboratively, which means that all of us spent some time discussing the similarities and the differences between our different visions for that. It was very open. Everybody discussed it, both they spent some time individually writing things down, but they also spent time discussing what they saw for it. And as I said, it was collaborative, which means that they spent some time merging those vision statements together to come up with something that seemed to reflect the best and most important ideas from each other. It was iterative, which means that they took time not only to take those statements the first time, but we were able to take the statements and put them out there, discuss them, and then come back and revise that statement as we continue to get a better understanding of where we were trying to go. But most importantly, the one thing that we all acknowledged is it was a starting point for us, that nothing that we did there was done, but it was just an opportunity for us to, begin that dialogue, not just within the board and administration, but within our school community as a whole. So, Allison, if you don't mind going to slide 3.
She did.
Okay, in that slide, this is just a sample of about 8 to 10 different vision statements that we had come up with that were used to drive this process forward. And then, Allison, if you'll go to slide 4, is the draft vision statement that we concluded with after our work on that particular day on December 7th. So it was fostering good citizenship through ethical leadership and providing the opportunity for all students to graduate with the knowledge and skill to become positive contributors in their community. So when we left that meeting, I think everybody felt very positive that their ideas had been heard and that their ideas were part of forming that statement. I also think everybody felt like it was really important that we took advantage of this opportunity to use this vision statement to generate a broader dialogue within the school community. So in my presentation today, what I'm asking for the board to consider, and Allison, this is on slide 5, is to make a motion establishing an ad hoc steering committee for the implementation of the strategic plan. So basically, what I'm asking for is a committee that would work from now until probably about the end of June. It would help coordinate all our efforts in taking this vision statement, crafting it into a solid and comprehensive strategic plan for all aspects of the school, and making sure that those things that we're doing are aligned with what we want our school to look like down the road. This ad hoc committee would be representative of the school community in a lot of different ways. Some of the possible membership, possible arrangements of it would be to have staff reps from different grade level groups, K through 2, 3-5, 6-8, high school or specials, parent representation. Some of the recommendations I would make, if you look at our PTO president, our vice president, parents from our athletic programs, grade level representatives, parents, and of course board members. Part of some of the work that I would hope that they would take on would be to design a schedule of focus groups and parent meetings and staff meetings to gather information and feedback from as many different stakeholders as possible. I would also hope that the steering committee would align the strategic plan with the vision, which means that those things that we're spending our time on as a school and as a board are aligned with getting us closer to what we see our future being as a school. And then also determine a timeline for implementation for the strategic plan. So as they look at all of these different aspects of our school and all the things that we're talking about, we'd say here's a reasonable time frame by which we can have all those things in place and operating successfully in the school. So that's just a brief summary and a recap of the work that we did in December and a recommendation that I would like to make to the board for moving forward.
Thank you, Joe. That motion is on under new business and actionable items. It's on the agenda under discussion for an ad hoc steering committee for the strategic plan.
It's where?
It's under new business, item number 9.2. Any questions about that from anybody? I mean, we were all there.
I do want to make a comment, and we had quite a few parents in that room that day. My experience with what we did was positive. I hope that the people in the room agree with that, and that's, to me, the kind of direction that we need to continue to have. So my hope is we have a ton of interest from parents that want to be on the strategic planning committee and really kind of help us shape what that future looks like. And so everybody's going to be welcomed and trying to be involved. So that's kind of where I am with it.
Can I ask a question of Joe? Joe?
Yes, go ahead.
Or maybe someone could ask it. I was wondering what the focus groups with parents would look like, what they would do. Joe, did you hear her?
It was a question about the makeup of the focus groups. Is that what she said?
What work would the focus
What
groups
would
do?
what work would the focus groups do?
So what I picture, and this is all just stuff that's in my head that I think that I would want to make sure that any kind of ad hoc committee that we have would help shape. But what I see them doing is being able to take some of the information that we have put in our kind of draft strategic planning working document and looking at giving us feedback on the value of that as a school direction, give us feedback on where they want the school to be in 2, 3, 5 years, feedback on what they see in the vision statement, if there's things in there that they see like are reflected well or things that need to be reflected more accurately in that vision statement. We take that information from those focus groups back to the steering committee, and we start trying to look for themes, looking for things that are being said consistently across different groups that we may or may not have captured effectively in the strategic plan, and use it to shape and refine it.
I have a question.
Okay, go ahead.
So the draft strategic plan we've had obviously for months. We've actually presented portions of that, or maybe all of it, to us, the school at town hall. Talk to me, Joe, a little bit about how that process went. Like, who was involved? There was, a lot of there was input given for that draft, right? So, who was responsible?
Yes. So that draft was, it originally started with several different things. One of the things that I did was we used our school improvement team last spring to do a SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. That was one of the jumping off points for it. In that process, we also looked at our school improvement team looked at our surveys, both the current ones and the ones that we had done historically, to look for points of data that seemed to be consistent across them. Then I also met with the board. I met with Carla and several other board members to look at some different ideas about where we wanted it to go. I had some meetings with our PTO about it as well, and then I also met with staff groups about it. In those staff groups, we talked about what they were hoping to see from the school in the long term, and then we also used some of the feedback from our staff survey as well as a parent survey with those staff groups to see if that could help guide the kind of goals that we need to establish as a school. And so once I kind of had all that information, I started compiling it and putting it together in a document that reflected a lot of things that we're hearing across all those groups, and trying to identify some objectives and goals, and that's where that was the generation of that draft plan.
All right. Okay. I appreciate it.
Any other questions?
Joe? Can you hear me?
Yes.
In case you can't stay, I will tell you that I'm planning to support this just as you submitted it, and I will be supporting Paul, Carla, and Jay as board members to represent the board on that ad hoc committee.
That's great.
Any other discussion?
He might not be able to stay, he's having so much fun.
He might fall asleep on us. He's having too much fun.
I didn't expect that.
Where? I looked.
No, I mean, I've been there. You walk a lot when you're on that trip, and it's exhausting, so I understand.
I put in the hospital blood clots when I got back.
That's it. Okay, the next item that when we skipped things around was the release of the land purchase information. So, what we wanted to just let everybody know was that, over the last few months, we've been working on, pretty much stabilizing our perimeter and securing land for the school expansion down the road. And so this whole area of land to this side of the building is now ours. We closed on that December 15th. And we used money from the cash surplus that was originally stored up over the years because we thought we were gonna need that to put down on a regular mortgage, but since we went with bond financing, that money was in the bank for us to use. And so our finance committee members looked at that, made sure our debt service ratio was covered, and that everything in terms of the bond was secure, and we had enough in the cash surplus to buy that land. Additionally, there's one other piece of land that is actually being used by the construction company across the street down the road that we have an option to purchase. We're gonna, Jay's gonna be talking with our real estate attorney on that. That's not as imperative right now. I don't know where we'll go with that, but that is something that is under discussion. I don't know, anybody else have anything to add?
Unless people want particular size, plots.
Yeah, that information is available if you wanna know what the plots are and all that stuff, we can do that, but it goes all the way up to the apartments, so.
Yeah, so it's a little over 16 acres. We
Yeah.
paid $1.375 million in cash for it. So that probably shows our financial worth pretty well.
Yeah.
Jay, we can't hear you back here.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. So it's a little over 16 acres. We paid $1.375 million in cash for that property, which still leaves us in a fantastic position on our debt service ratio as well as our days cash on hand, which are the two requirements we have for our bond. So it speaks a lot to the people that have been here before, to me, and to how that if you're going to spend that much cash, you did something right. So that's kind of where my take on it, and it also, we are still in a fantastic financial position even after spending that much money. So that's the only really thing I have to say.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
So, anything else under the land information? We also had, in December, an investor call, and we have to do that on a regular basis, for the bond, where we update them on enrollment, staffing, upcoming things that might be going on. We will have another one probably scheduled, I think it's in early June, it might be May, but that'll be the next one where we do the same thing, and that's when we'll update them on the situation with the land. And that went very well. It's kind of nervous because they can come on, any of the investors can come on the phone and ask us questions, and they didn't, which is really good.
Yeah, it was, I don't even think they were on the call.
I don't know if anybody was even on there, we just were talking to ourselves.
I think a little bit of that is that they probably get a recorded conversation of the call, and they'll listen to the recording of the call, and then they may or may not fire off emails or whatever they would have. But I think the very first one we were on, there was actually somebody there, and they wanted to know why we didn't have a playground, and we obviously were able to get that done. So that's kind of where we were on it.
Yep. So all of them so far have gone very well, although sometimes the questions are difficult, but we have a bond attorney that can step in and answer those questions for us if we don't have the information. So they're on the line with us as well. Any other discussion on that? Okay, moving forward would be under new business. Joe, you're still there, right? Maybe not. Okay, there is a request for the formation of a director of school and student development that is being put forward from administration. Joe, would you like to talk about that?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, would you like to talk about that?
Sure, and I submitted a job description to you all, and one of the things it was that's been what's that?
He was mumbling.
I was mumbling. So,
Okay.
so John can't hear me.
One of the things that was apparent as I worked on that strategic plan and we looked at the vision statement, that our school has expanded and changed pretty dramatically in the last 4 to 5 years. A couple of the numbers that jump out is our size of our staff has increased over 60%, of our instructional staff has increased 60%, our student enrollment has increased to over 40%, but our non-instructional support staff has only increased about a 10% rate. So one of the things that I've been thinking a lot about is we're trying to put a strategic plan in place that's going to help make sure that, just regardless of the size of the school or the shape of it or what it looks like, that we're still going to be able to support the pillars that the school was built on, and to help drive the leadership program that we have in the high school. And I really feel like for us to do that effectively, we've got to start looking at expanding the non-instructional staff that we have in the school. And I feel like the best place for us to start is to develop a position that would essentially be in charge of doing several things. One would be the implementation of the strategic plan, the growth of the leadership program in the high school and connecting it to our character education programs in the younger grades, as well as spearheading and coordinating the work of the parents in our school, because they do so much, and and as our school has expanded, they've got to continue to do so much for us. I feel like on the school side, we need to have somebody in place to help to nurture and support those efforts for the school. And so what you see in that job description is a reflection of the hope that we can get those things done.
Go ahead, I'll let you go first.
Joe,
Yeah,
who would this person answer to?
they would answer to me.
Okay, thank you.
Joe, I have a couple questions. Is it a 12-month or
Sure.
11-month or 10-month position?
I look at it as a 12-month position, because some of the things that I would like to have them do is to help coordinate marketing and promotional efforts and planning efforts for the school and doing all those things. And I feel like a lot of that stuff gets done more effectively in the summer than it does even during the school year.
And do you have a salary range for this position?
It would be in the range of administration salaries. So there isn't anything by the board that was necessarily set that way, but that's where it would be reflective of.
Is it the starting for next, agenda, or are you, for next budget, or are you pulling this from this budget, and where's it coming from in the line items?
So what we have right now in our schools, because we budget conservatively, we end up every year with more revenue than what we have budgeted for. And so what I would be looking at is trying to use some of that revenue that we know that we have gained from the state, which is about in excess of about $154,000 this year, to help offset the cost of stuff that we could do this year. I feel like this year is a good year to do it, in part because we are trying to put that strategic plan in place. It would be a relatively small expense for a few months this year, and then continue building it into the budget for next year.
So our governance structure, that was approved, about 2.5 years ago, includes 3 principals, a K-5, a 6-8, and a 9-12, which we authorized. So where will this position fit in with that?
I don't know exactly how we would, exactly where it would fit in that governance structure. I think one of the things that we may need to go back and do is look at how we've designed our governance structure with our principals and our administrators, see whether that works with what we want to do with our long-term vision for the school as well. And so I'm open to having a conversation about how we might want to look at changes in that governance structure so we can get some of this work done. I certainly understand where that structure came from, but there's also that possibility that now that we see what our school looks like and what the work entails, is there an opportunity there to revise it so that we can get some of the things that are important to our school done? I think that might be a conversation we want to have.
Do you think, Cindy, that the governance committee could, since that's where that came from, and you were on that committee when that came out?
I was. Yes, we can look at
You think
that.
you could take a look at it and work that out over
Yes,
the next couple
we'd
months?
be happy to do that.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I just have a couple more on my notes here. So we already authorized a person for the business manager last year to work in there. Are we still looking to fill that role in the next year or so, or is that was a temporary thing?
That was a temporary thing that we did last year to help us work with our finances as we were dealing with the large bond and what that looks like in a single year expense. And that expense, as I understand it, was also authorized when we had gained more revenue than what we had budgeted, and was a way to help support that transition. Now, with that being said, I think there's several areas in the school we need to continue to have conversations about. The expanse of the school relative to the amount of work that individuals have to do has been very difficult for us. So I think we need to continue to have conversations, if not necessarily this spring, but down the road, how we can support the work that's being placed on a lot of different people outside of the instructional areas.
Does anybody else have any questions?
I do have a real quick
Yeah,
question.
go.
So obviously, Joe, the position director of school and student development, the word development obviously means different things. So do you, I know you had it in the job description, how much work would this person be doing, in the community? I mean, is it a fundraising job? I mean, there's I think there's some element, right, to that, and maybe that's for us to kind of button up. Instead of it just being an internal leadership job,
Yeah. I'm very willing to have some additional conversation about what are the most important outcomes that we see from bringing this position online are. And I think if we can have some of those conversations that may include whether is this somebody whose primary task is going to be looking at fundraising for the school, or is this somebody whose primary task is looking at developing the capacity across our parents to continue to be involved in the way they currently are. I think there's a lot of value in what the PTO is doing this year with the nest egg and how that's bringing in revenue. It's a good program for us to continue to explore in terms of its potential impact for the school as a whole. And maybe this person could be, one of the things that they could be responsible for is helping support that program with the PTO. So I think there's, certainly some things that we can do in there to try to refine what their primary responsibilities are going to be, but setting aside just the need to maybe refine some of those things, I think the position in and of itself is very valuable.
Thank you.
Does anybody else have any questions? Joe, this is not, because of the title director, I just want to clarify this for the people here. This is a position that's called director, but it's not a lateral position to you. It's a direct report to you, correct?
Yes, and I'm willing to change that position. I would tell you that I have probably more money in on the actual job description than I do on the title.
Okay.
So I have to say I went through several different iterations of that and fumbled around with it a little bit. So, if we come up with a title that might feel like it's more appropriate for that position, I'm certainly willing to have that conversation too. I'm not wed to it.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify that it wasn't a lateral position.
I believe that title to be fairly confusing also, so I would look forward to us coming up with a new title.
That's fine, that's fine. If there's any other discussion? So we would need a motion to approve a new position.
I'll make that motion to approve the new position as described by our director.
Second.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. The next item was a request for an ad hoc steering committee for the strategic plan. And Tony, you said you wanted committee members to be myself, Paul, and Jay.
Yeah, I would move that item with Paul Stanfield as chair and Carla and Jay on that committee.
Is there a second?
That's okay with you guys.
Is there but before we do that, do we need a description of what this committee is put together before we move on that, or
I think he had that up there, didn't he?
He might have.
I think
Okay.
he had it up there.
Okay.
So you're moving that we approve it as described by.
Yeah, with Paul as chair, Carla and Jay, members from this board, representing this board on that committee.
Is there a second?
I second.
There discussion?
So I'm okay with moving it the way it was described. I do have a quick question for Joe. How quickly do we need to try to, obviously we're going to have a lot of parental interest here. And so I just want to make sure that we have that covered, right? So we're actually moving the job or the description of that committee without specific numbers of people. So that's my only thing. Like, is it going to be as many people that want to do it, or do we need to set a limit? Or, obviously I understand the urgency too of trying to get that done. And I don't know if we can figure out a way.
If we look at the original high school committee, that was a pretty large committee, but there were some people that attended that weren't actually officially voting members. So I think that kind of a committee would be a good committee to kind of model it after that. That's just a thought.
So we maybe can add as we go, or part of the description that he had out there was you have the committee, but then you have focus groups spread around. So I just envision the thing, know, if it touches everybody, it's fine with me, but you know, obviously that's very hard, you know, for it to do
Well,
that.
you could
so.
have a meeting, like just have like a founding meeting of it and kind of see who wants to be involved.
You probably would, want some type of a cap. I don't know
Yeah.
what that cap would be, but as members of the, board, you probably want to cast it.
Just as a discussion item, we obviously got some applications, and that may be a fantastic place, you know, to do some reaching out, so, yeah.
Jay, can I note that the slide said that, Joe envisioned it as one of their duties would be to assemble a committee that involved all stakeholders and parents and teachers and staff from different departments.
Okay.
So, if we approve it as described, I think it would cover
Give us-
assembling
give us
a representative
Yeah.
committee, if that's what Joe's envisioning.
And ad hoc committees are not permanent committees, they go on for as long as we need them, but at some point, you know, it would not be a standing committee. I'll just make sure everybody understands that. Yeah, I'm fine with that. So the motion was to approve the ad hoc committee as described with the board members of Paul, Carla, and Jay. Is that correct?
Paul as chair, Carla and Jay, right?
Yep. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, this next item on the agenda was a discussion of board rules.
Hey, Carla, can I?
Yes. Go ahead.
I'm sorry to jump in.
That's okay.
Do you want to include members of administration in that committee description, or that committee, that starting point there?
We did, it was on the
Feel
board,
like-
yeah.
Yeah, it's on there.
It was on there.
Or-
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, sorry.
Yeah, it'll come
I'm
under
good.
staff. You're fine. It's hard being on the phone when you're trying to, you know, work with everybody, so don't.
Stay awake.
Yeah, well, stay awake, but don't apologize for jumping in. The next item was the discussion of board roles and responsibilities and operating principles. I didn't receive any documents
Oh,
for that.
sorry.
Do you have those?
There's no documents on that. What I was hoping is that we've had, some discussion about the executive committee descriptions, you know, what does our president do, what does our vice president do? And this is just a request for the board to formally task the governance committee with looking at the documents relating to board membership. We have a commitment letter, and we have a handbook, just looking at those things and making sure they reflect what we'd like to do and be.
And could we do that as early as the February meeting?
Yeah, we can start working on that. I've been reading up about this and looking at some Team CFA materials, and there's a lot out there, and I'd like to bring in some examples of that and have us look at that, so we can make recommendations to the full board.
So are you including the confidentiality, conflict of interest, and
Sure,
and
everything
all of
in
that that's in there?
Right, I wanna make sure that we assemble in kind of one big pile, like what do we have, what do we need, make sure we just review. I just wanted to get the board's endorsement on that job before we start it.
Yeah, I think that should go to the that's absolutely under the
Okay.
governance committee.
And I'll support you on that. I think it's a good idea because as it's written now, there's a lot written that may not apply.
And we're changing from a founding board to a more, Carla, what's the word, sustaining? Sustaining board, just making sure that our current descriptions and governance, documents as a board reflect what our roles are today.
If you want a motion on that, I'll support you and I'll make the motion. I'm not sure if we want
I
it
don't think
worded like it is on the
I
discussion.
we don't need a motion, the governance committee,
So we
it's
can-
already under your description.
Okay, so that's.
We don't need a
All right,
motion
just wanted to
to
make sure that we weren't
appoint it to them.
going rogue over there in
I
governance,
mean, you
okay?
can, I don't think so, because
Yeah.
it's already under their roles and responsibilities,
Okay.
so.
That's good.
So, yeah, so that will go to the governance committee.
Okay.
Great.
I'll withdraw that motion.
The next item on there, is there any other questions? Next item on there was, the staff and parent surveys that came out. And we really haven't had a chance to collectively discuss these. I think a lot of it has to go to all the committees because there's academic items on there, there's governance items on there, there's personnel items on there. So what does everybody think about that?
You want to table it, is that what you're asking?
No, I think it needs to go to all the
I
committees.
think it needs to get pushed down
Do
to the
we want
committee, to the committee level for
Yeah,
For analysis.
analysis. Yeah.
I agree. You want that in the motion, or you just wanna do it?
You might have to move that, right?
Good, I mean, it certainly is something that every committee should be looking at, and then we have to come back together on it, so yeah, go ahead, we need,
Yeah.
go ahead.
So,
with the
yeah, let's
motion.
move it.
All right, if you want a motion, we'll move that, and, we forward the surveys to all committees and bring back to this board at a later date, preferably within 30 days.
30 days.
Yeah, I think- I
30
think
30
they're
days.
good.
Yeah, I'll second that.
So it's Tony, Jay, any discussion?
Carl, I have a question.
Yes, sir?
That, notwithstanding the need for the committees to do the work and, you know, obviously subject to the redaction, I can release those, publicly. Are you guys okay with all that?
Yes, absolutely. And even
Okay.
Joe, the school improvement team is not a board committee, but I think they've looked at some of the surveys as well over the years, so I certainly would not, you know, I would certainly recommend that the staff survey and the parent surveys are looked at by them as well.
Yeah, I've used it with a lot of different committees, so I just wanted to make sure you guys are okay with me putting it out there for people to look at.
Yes, I have
It's
no
already
objection.
online, isn't it?
Yeah, it did get put online, but I think Joe pulled it.
There were some names out maybe
Because
out
there were
there,
not,
so-
it was not redacted. Okay, so the motion was from Tony, Jay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, and the last item under that is the Office of Charter Schools Performance Report, which we all received as a board. And Joe, do you wanna speak to that a little bit?
Sorry, say that again, Carla.
This-
I've missed what I couldn't hear what you said.
The school performance report. You just
Okay.
wanna talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, and every year, the Office of Charter Schools releases what they call the Charter School Performance Framework, and it's a compilation of all the different things that we're accountable for and our level of compliance or status in regards to those things. And so I have to periodically through the course of the year, about 2 or 3 different times during the year, I think my next reporting one is towards the end of November, update them on certain things that they request. And so some of it is procedural things like whether the North Carolina report card is on our school website. Some of it is data-based, which is, are we meeting the accountability measures for the state, the growth status for the different subgroups that we have in the school. So that document is just really a compilation of all those different things. So we normally get a big long one in the summer. So this is the first time I remember getting one in January, but normally we get one that's like, 8 or 9 different pages in the summer with all the different categories in there. What you see is on the one that you got, the category of B, which is operational renewal monitoring criteria, there's nothing in there. Normally we'll have something in there, all that kind of stuff. So our performance framework has always been very good, and it's good again this year. The only thing indicated on there that we did not meet was the American Indian subgroup for grade level proficiency. And I have gone in through the DPI data, the testing data that we had, and it indicates that we do not actually have an American Indian subgroup. And a subgroup for DPI is 10 students or more, because we don't have more than 10 American Indian students in any individual grade level. We don't actually have that subgroup. So I quibble a little bit with their statement of not met. I feel like it's probably more appropriate to put NA, not applicable, but they put what they put on there. I'm sure there's probably just some standard they use with it. So that's the only thing on there that jumped out on me, unless you guys had some questions about it.
No, that was the only thing I saw I thought was odd, because I didn't think we had anybody in that category.
And we get that twice a year. Is that right, Joe? Does that
Yeah.
framework come to
Yeah.
us twice? Yeah.
Yes.
And our letter grade is in that as well, and so right now,
Right.
that lists us as a B school, correct?
Correct.
Any questions about the performance report? Moving forward, Reports to the board. I don't really have a real report tonight other than the things that we've already really talked about, which was the land and the surveys, so I don't really have anything else. And so we'll go on to the director's report. I mean, I'm sorry,
Well,
Jay, do
nothing
you?
there in front of you,
I don't
Bill?
have anything.
Okay.
I have something from the finance
Okay.
committee to report,
Okay,
maybe.
yeah, that'll be under finance, okay. So go ahead, Joe, director's report, how do you wanna do that?
So I'm just going to say, you guys have seen it. The big thing for me was really kind of reporting out on that visioning process and where I wanted to go with that in the job position that we talked about. I will say that our application numbers look on par with where we've been in the last 2 years. But even at this time of the year, reporting a week out, I think when I reported that, I sent that all to you guys on Friday, and that Saturday and Sunday we had gotten 40 more applications. So you can add 40 additional numbers to that. So I think even by the time we get to today, we probably have, over 50 more applications to add to that. So we continue to be in good shape that way. Our discipline continues to be pretty much on par with where we've been. I don't have any significant concerns about where we are with those. So, unless you guys have any questions, I'd just like to submit it for the record.
I minor questions. The last date of fill openings for this school year is when? Because we have a couple of openings listed here.
It's the 16th.
What grades are there?
There's 7 openings in the 10th grade and 1 opening in the 1st grade. Miss Croat's here, is that, or she's gone? I was gonna ask her if that was accurate, but is that still? First grade started today, so that opening is filled then.
There is one opening in first grade?
No, she just said.
Oh, filled today, okay.
Yeah, I think that opening was filled. And then there's 7 current openings in the 10th grade, correct, Matthew? Okay. Any other, questions about anything? Our lottery date is coming up, right?
It's the middle of March. I don't know if Jen's there. She would know it. They have the specific date. She was with that over her head for about 2 months. So.
Yeah, she just left. She was back there, but she's gone. So we could just ask her another time.
It's middle of March, like the 15th or 16th, something along those lines.
The fire reports are also included in the director's report. Those are at the back of it. If anybody has any questions, is there any questions about the director's report? PTO did not have a meeting, which is why they did not have a report submitted this month. Finance.
So the finance committee did meet this month. We didn't have our December financials finished because we didn't think we were actually going to have a meeting, but we ended up meeting in January. Really to kind of discuss where we stand financially, which is we still have some cash. I think to the point where we want to take that money and start to invest that money. So what we talked a little bit about in finance this week was how does that begin to look for us? And over probably the next 2 weeks or something, the finance committee is gonna start talking to some people about making that possible. So financially we're still in really good shape.
Jay, do you think you will have a recommendation for investments next month, or do you think March?
I'd love to. So we've got probably some work to do here in the next week or so to try to talk a little bit further about it. But yeah, I mean that's our goal. One of the things that was a good question in finance the other day, Claire brought up, there's this element of spending state funds. Fortunately, this money is like money that we would have sort of in a savings account, so the accounting process of those dollars is already been done, but it still kind of lends us to a conservative way of investing. We want to still be good taxpayer stewards of the money, stewards of taxpayers' money. So.
Is there a list of the regulations that you could forward to the board?
Yes. So
restrictions, maybe.
Well,
maybe not.
I will forward you some of the investment policy statements that we've discussed over the last 2 or 3 months in the committee. And what the committee really needs to do is risk tolerance. What are we willing to invest in? What aren't we willing to invest in from a school standpoint? And then what are we going to do with our return? And so those are some of the things that we've been having a discussion about. So.
And I did see the email from Darryl Keller. He
Yeah.
said to make sure the investment was conservative.
Conservative, right. So we talked about, you know, a minimum, you know, of about a 5% return. So obviously 5% return on $1 million, that's the number we're talking about trying to invest. If we could get 5% on it next year, that would provide the school another $50,000 that we would split between an operational budget type scenario to try to provide as much as we can for the kids, and then probably start to put back money for capital expense moving forward.
And is there, so is there things that, because it is state money, is there things that we can and cannot invest in?
Yes.
It won't be state money.
It won't be,
It'll be coming
right.
out of the cash surplus. So the way it's been described over the years is that we have to spend the state money first and then the local money, so that we don't get in trouble for that. And
Okay,
we've
so
learned
it's
that
usually
lesson over the years.
Yeah, it's, I mean, certainly after our books get closed every year, the money that kind of gets left over in the surplus is not money that's earmarked that we need to spend. So, as long as Acadia helps kind of get that done, we're in good shape with that.
Do we know when Darryl Keller is coming to present the audit?
I don't know.
February?
That-
Thank you.
Any other discussion? So then, because of last month's meeting's decision to not have meetings, committee meetings, the only other committee that was authorized to meet was the high school planning. There were no actionable items that came out of high school planning, but I do believe we scheduled another meeting, correct, Matthew? Let's see, yeah, then that meeting is January 17th at 8:30. Since I'll be already gone, will somebody make sure Paul gets that message?
Got, Paul, should be here in, about 10 minutes.
That brings us to public comment. That's my knees cracking.
6 hours.
Everybody that wanted to make a comment signed on the comment sheet? Maybe. I don't know what that noise is, but it's not annoying. Jill falls
Couple. You?
How many?
Three.
Three speakers? You want 2 minutes?
2 minutes. Is that all right?
If we really have 3 speakers,
Yeah,
I don't think
we're
it's
not
that.
gonna be here for,
We're not gonna be
unless somebody stops to fill it.
Yeah.
I'll stop it. Just give me 1 second, I gotta turn the page here. Okay, public comments. Deirdre MacArthur, parent.
Hi. My first point is a little bit moot since you did vote already, but I wanted to say, and I'm friends with Paul Stansfield's family, and they're wonderful. But I did want to ask if we could, if the board would look closely at the several, I believe, applicants that we have. It just would have been nice to see some new people maybe come in. And also, I think it would be great if we could, it's hard, I know, but get more diversity on the board that reflects our student population. So, and then second, I wanted to just thank Carla for everything she's done. She's been just unerring in keeping her focus on the kids in their development and their success. Thank you.
Tammy Thayer.
I'm Tammy Thayer, and I'm a parent, and I'd like to begin by saying that I love our school, and I'm both honored and proud to be a part of the Cornerstone community. There are many wins to be found here at Cornerstone, including a higher teacher retention rate than most schools, caring administrators, and a close-knit, committed community of families. But while there are areas worth celebrating here at Cornerstone, the recent events that have taken place with the board have parents like myself wondering if there's cause for concern. While many of the differences between Cornerstone and Guilford County schools benefit the CCA community, one major difference has parents uncertain of their role. As Guilford County residents, we have the opportunity to participate in selecting our public school district's Board of Education. We can learn about and vote for representatives for our respective districts to advocate on behalf of our district schools. In contrast, despite Cornerstone being a school founded on the value of parent involvement, we have a self-selecting and self-governing board that does not include parents in any way and has the authority to limit information that is shared with parents. I believe that I speak for a significant number of families when I say that a self-governing board causes concern that there's little to no accountability. As a parent at Cornerstone, my options for understanding what is happening with our board of directors are limited. While the Freedom of Information Act certainly allows me or any other citizen to request copies of correspondence, documents, and information about the board, it limits parents' abilities to truly participate in the governing of our school. Additionally, we are left to take each board member's word as truth, which, let's face it, with the recent turn of events displaying Ms. Swindlehurst's lies about the holding secret meetings, this leaves parents fighting feelings of helplessness and fear over the trajectory of our school. Additionally, I'm a little bit emotional about this because this is my kid's future. This matter is only compounded by the board's silence toward parent inquiries about why Scott Conklin was voted off the board. This situation leaves parents making half-informed inferences about the motives of the board, and it allows a culture of secrecy with no guardrails for accountability. As a school with a charter based upon developing high moral character and fostering parent involvement, it seems counterproductive to our mission to allow a culture where secrecy, dishonesty, and lack of accountability are not only tolerated, but are seemingly promoted. It seems only appropriate that moving forward, the board institute a parent ombudsman to serve as a voting board member and conduit for parents' voices to be heard amongst the school board. An ombudsman would serve both the board and the parent community well, would open up two-way communication, and would offer parents an opportunity to participate in board decisions. While I understand that each board committee has parent representatives, these volunteers only represent parents in regard to that particular topic that this specific committee is charged with addressing. Additionally, these parent representatives do not offer parents a voice to the board as a whole. They do not communicate back to parents as a whole, nor do they provide parents with an opportunity to be a part of board member selections. Additionally, I would like to see a movement toward making board meetings more accessible to a wider variety of parents, maybe utilizing tools such as Facebook Live broadcasts. In closing, I implore the board to please consider the need to address the matters of secrecy, the lacking accountability, and the concerns that a self-selecting board creates, and to act on behalf of the best interests of the school in instituting a parent ombudsman. Thank you.
Thanks, Tim. No. You want to comment? No.
Janet Bryan. Did you? I'm sorry.
No, I can reach out.
Oh, okay. Janet Bryan.
I just wanted to start by saying thank you for your comments, Mr. Hawkins. I feel like what you have written down there needs to go to the entire school. We ask for communication and we don't get it. Whether you were to email back the school and say, we understand that there are questions, we're not able to answer them at this time, we plan to have them at this time. I appreciate some sort of communication on a regular basis. We did the same thing with the high school. We emailed, we messaged, we questioned. We did the same thing with the facilities. We emailed, we questioned, and we got back board letters in regards to that. And I feel like the situation that has gone on would have warranted the same sort of thing, to help relieve. Because like you said, people make mistakes, and people make decisions based on the information that they have. So your decision to change the board, I've never said it was wrong. I just asked for information so that I could understand where you were heading with that information. And I feel like your written statement was very helpful in me understanding where you're coming from and where that information helped you with your decision-making process. So I encourage the board to put out that information. And like I said, if I send an email, which I have and got 0 responses to, email me back. Tell me I'm not gonna respond to you this week. I'll get in touch with you at X amount of time. I just get very frustrated with asking questions and getting no responses, because we've been encouraged to be parentally involved. So I encourage you to respond to our responses in a timely manner, as timely as you can. Like I said, I don't even care if you email me back and say, I don't have those answers, but I will work on getting them. Or we're going to have this meeting will help answer these questions. That's the kind of stuff that we as parents are looking for, feedback, so that, and when we say that, I look at this board and 4 out of the 5 people up there have students that go to this school. So I don't feel that you are against my school or whatever I wanna say. You guys have children invested in this too. So I understand that, but we just would like a better understanding and appreciate the moving forward, keeping parents informed as the board has in the past.
For a statement here, Ms. Bryant, I totally understand where you're coming from on the issue of the correspondence letter, because we were doing that on a regular basis. In fact, Paul Stanfield was one of the people that would help draft that I don't know if we did it every month, but it was every couple of months. And it worked out really well. He was the board secretary, but then after he came off the board, we've had this void of a secretary for a while. So Jay and I talked about this the other day, about resuming that, because we felt it was something that probably needed to come out as well. So I do think that is the plan moving forward.
Can I ask a question? In
Yes.
the past, has the secretary responded to parent emails that come in? Is that part of my duty? Or is that to be determined?
So that was at one point both the secretary and or the president, and then there was kind of this conversation about halting that, and so the only thing I would do is respond that we've received it and it's been forwarded to the board for consideration. But I do think that there should be at least some kind of respectful response to it. That's my opinion.
Okay,
Can I
well,
make a comment? Is that okay?
Yes.
Is that all right? So Janet,
Can I comment on what she just
Yeah,
said?
go ahead,
Because
please.
That's exactly,
Yeah.
in the past, that's
like
always
it too.
what's happened.
Right.
I've had a respectful response that I don't have this information at this time, but we as a board will get together and we will respond to your questions. And that was the same thing, like I said, with high school, with finance, with the location, all of those. Every time I sent an email, I got a response that said something, and there was the follow-up from the board as a whole. And so we as parents struggle with the non-response, so.
And so, I obviously I agree, and I think part of what you're asking for is just a simple acknowledgement initially. It does take a little bit of time, and I'm not trying to defend any of us or throw anybody, but we've got to try to be collective in how we speak. And so I got all your emails, and I actually did respond, I think, briefly to an operational email, but that's okay. That's all I'm saying is if you email us, it's very difficult for all of us to try to get together for a long, and obviously the last 2 or 3, 4 weeks, it's been a tough situation.
And
right? So,
I appreciate you guys responding to those comments as well. And I've said this many a time before, you guys are not all gonna agree. So to me, for you to send me a collective, sometimes I just wanna know your opinion. That's your opinion. This is why this happened, because I'm not asking you all to agree. That's why we want diversity. That's why we want different individuals. I have a neighbor that I would love to get on this board, but I don't know how to get that accomplished. Somebody outside of this school. We are so all emotionally involved in this that it's close to our heart and close to our tear ducts, you know. And so I appreciate you responding, because I know that's not generally how these open
May I comment,
discussions
Mr.
go.
Chair?
Sure.
I'd like to address that and Ms. MacArthur's comment, because it brought up a point that I have wondered about. We have applications back. The oldest application that I remember is Mr. Taylor, and then I think is it Mr. Sumner?
That's it.
Okay. All right, we've got applications back for, I don't know, maybe a year. And this board discussed a procedure in which those applicants serve on a committee before they apply to the board, which I think is a good idea. I don't think we ever actually took action on it, but it was discussed. In the past president would just bring up an applicant, you know, when they wanted it. So I think, and I don't ask for any action tonight, but I think this board should discuss a plan, basically what you described as a course of action to the board. And I think it was Carla that had the idea about serving on a committee.
It was a
It's
discussion
been-
item, but
Yeah.
It's been
But I
balanced.
think that's a good idea.
Let's stop. Can we, first of all, let me say this. I think that there were, to your point, Janet, I'm glad we might have been able to respond some to you, but as a point of an everyday meeting, like this board shouldn't be responding to public comment. You know, we can't do it. And so I just ask that we stop all this now, and, you know,
And schedule a town hall
and
meeting where
we
you can answer those
we are
questions.
gonna work diligently to do that. So, there is one, yes. March.
Thank you.
hold on one second, I'm just noting that Arena's leaving at 5:33. Apologize.
You're good.
Congratulations.
Phil,
I can't make it, but just I can't sing a nickel. Well, we need a motion.
Yeah, you wanna do it, Phil?
Make a motion to go into executive session